Good morning, everybody. I did a first video, but neglected to do a full checklist before I turned the camera on, so I kind of screwed up the first part of it. So I am kind of just doing a reopen, kind of an intro here to say that my editing skills are not great. So when I go into the part of the reading, it kind of opens with something about a camera, and I just ignore that. So I'm just going to splice these two together and just start over. So, anyways, welcome, enjoy, talk to you later, bye. Turn the camera around, but anyways, okay. So, welcome to Star and Flurry, where I do a reading and also usually do a bit of a rant and maybe a story or two. So, my rant this morning is I love this deck, the Radiant Wilds Tarot. Love this deck. But not everything about it. First of all, it has a shiny gilding, which I wish they would get out of their head. It's just, if you must do gilding, do the matte kind of gilding. And if you can't, if that's more expensive and you don't want to, then just leave it blank. Let people, they're going to, most of us are going to edge our own decks anyway. So if there's no edging, and that personalize it more for us. So keep that in mind when you're doing stuff like this. So I don't like this because it makes the decks, unless it's really super good gilding, it makes the deck clumpy to shuffle, and that's a pain in the ass. And then this deck is just, it wants to go this way no matter what. If I shuffle it normal, if I'm able, I could shuffle it normal, but God forbid if I riffle it, because then it just stays in that bridge position. It just wants to bend that way. And that's annoying with any deck. And so that bothers me about this deck. On the other hand, I love this deck. So my complaints aside, and the guidebook is so good. The guidebook does a brief description of the card. First, a kind of almost like a mantra, and then the brief description of the card and what it means, which just brings all. It's kind of a graphic-driven deck. I'll just show one of the cards. It's kind of kind of graphic deck like this, where you might not think there's a lot in it, and then you read the guidebook. It's like, oh my God, why didn't I see that? Unless you're super brilliant or super intuitive, which I'm neither. I don't think. But anyway, so it just really makes sense of the artwork. And once you read it, you don't. Even though I'm old and I tend to forget this stuff, I remember this because it brings clarity to the card image, which is really cool. And then it has a whole thing about the light part of the card, the meaning, and then it also has part of the shadow part. And I like that they don't say upright and reverse. They basically see light and shadow, so you can actually see both. Pardon me, both in the card without having to read reversals, which is really nice. So I like that a lot. My other rant is about, what is this sorcerer's magic that happens when you're shuffling a deck, as you always have, and then you go to look at cards and some are reversed? It's like you literally just shuffled them upside down and backwards out of the blue. And I can't decide whether that's the universe chiming in, saying, yes, reversals are good, Nancy. It's okay to read them. Or it's just my hands and head just don't do what they've done for years. So that's my rant. It drives me crazy. So anyways, I'm going to do a little reading. I've pre-shuffled all the cards. Good morning. Cheers. Fresh cup of coffee. So good. I had a good morning today. I got my insurance quote on my car, and oh my God, it was like 25% price hike. And I'm like, what? And I had made a claim because I had a cracked windshield. So I did get that replaced, and I felt like I was being punished for that. So I called them and said, maybe it's time to change policies because this is ridiculous. And even the agent I spoke with said, wow, that's a huge hike. And I'm like, isn't it? So we went in and we found out that one of the deductibles, I always try to keep my deductibles higher because the way it lowers your costs is just astounding. quick insurance note, which most people, and they just, they assign you $100 deductible and $250 deductible on things. And when I was a poor college student or just a poor worker, that was great. But I'm not those anymore, and I can afford, if it's $1,000 or less, I'll pay for it on my own anyways, rather than make the claim. So the fact that that my deductible is like on most of these is now $1,000, but it's lowered my premium substantially. So FYI, so always ask about that. If you can afford kind of that $1,000 threshold, do it, because it makes a huge difference. And if it doesn't with the company you're working with, then switch. And that's kind of what I did. I didn't switch, but I said I was talking to kind of an aggregate dealer. That's what they did. I used to work directly with an agent that was directly with my company, and now they've kind of conglomerated it, and now I talk to whoever I'd say at the end of the 1-800 number, and that's fine. So I told her, she goes, well, we can probably do this and that and the other thing. I said, do you represent more than one company? And she goes, well, yeah, we do. And I said, great, then I'm happy to switch too. And then, of course, that motivates, because I think they do eventually send it back to your company. That motivates them to freaking get their crap together and say, okay, maybe an $800 hike was a little much for her. Psh, yes, it was. Come on. So, yeah. So anyway, so I saved money there. And then cable companies. Now, I know people rant on them all the time, and I don't want to do that because I get a lot of, they're the only thing in my house that runs as often as it does. Literally. And so, and it functions fairly well most of the time. I have computer glitches and, modem glitches every once in a while, but mostly it's great. And whenever I have an issue, I call them, and if I can jump through the protocol hoops fast enough, which I usually do because I know them all now. So I just say, okay, it's this. I've done all of that. Let's jump to the only reset that you can do. And that usually gets me up and running again. And it saves me an hour time. So, plus it's a small company here in where I live, so it's a little easier to deal with them. I am probably one of 500 people they talk to every day, but it's local, so that makes a huge difference. Not somebody sitting in some office building in Atlanta or whatever. But so I called today and just said we need to lower the bill. And the problem is my city just switched cable companies basically. So everybody's under the old plan, but there's the new plan now, and that's where my price hikes have been coming up, although my old plan was doing the same thing. So I went in and so I went into their basic website just to look at pricing, and I was like, why am I paying all of this? When I started, I bought the whole shebang because it was really relatively inexpensive. Now it's not. And so I've cut everything, all the good Showtime, Cinemax, Movie Channel, HBO, all of that's gone, Encore Stars, all of that's gone. And I'm still paying through the nose for this stuff. So I go onto their website and I find out that and a lot of times what cable companies do is here's your standard package, but the things you watch the most, they're over here. They're, stupid channels, weird channels, but they're in the second tier because they're not worth putting in the first tier. Well, that was my old company. My new company has everything I need in their first tier. Well, I should say third tier. The bronze plan or whatever you want to refer to it as. So I call them and I say, I think I want to switch. And I can get HBO cheaper through Prime on Amazon than I can through their company. So I'm yanking that off. That was the only thing I kept. Because The Last of Us, oh my God. Anyways, so if you haven't watched that, watch it. It's so good. Even if you're not into that kind of genre, which I'm not. It's so good. Anyways, so I get talking to the woman, and it turns out that the plan I have isn't one they even offer anymore. Their most expensive plan, which supposedly I was on, is $20 cheaper than what I'm paying. But God forbid they should just send a pulse through their computers to adjust everybody. No, they wait for you to call and say, which is what I did. And so I called up, and usually I call up and say, we need to, what can I do? And this time I just said, my bill needs to be cheaper. That's all there is to it. I'm paying too much for the 3 stations I watch. So no, we're not doing that anymore. And I was nice because, they can swing you deals when they want to. So I was very nice. But rather than kind of saying, what can you do for me? I kind of said, this is what you need to do for me. And she did it. So she gave me the intro price. I mean, I've been with the company forever. She gave me the intro price, and she extended it for 2 years instead of 6 months. Thank you. Because I said, I don't want to get into something where you just kind of dabble this thing in front of me for half a year and then everything goes back up to where it was. I said, no, we're not doing that. And she said, that's I can. And so she kind of, so in 2 years, I'm going to have to do this again. But as I told her, I said, let's hope that in 2 years, I mean, because the more streaming services that get added on, the more, I mean, I'm paying for cable and then these streaming services. And I'm like, at some point, there's going to be more streaming services than it's worth doing cable. So cable companies, I think, in eventually are just going to become internet companies because all they're going to be doing is streaming all these streaming services. And then chances are at some point all the streaming services will get together and bundle a package, and then we're back to cable. So who knows? But I know they're going through an adjustment period, and I'm hoping in 2 years a lot of that will have shaken out, so that I could just buy internet. And I'm not ready. I was ready to cut the cord, and then I was like, So, I mean, I grew up with television that was just fed to me, and I'm still that way. When I catch a movie that I really like that happens to be being shown on TV, I get so excited that I caught it, rather than probably being able to just find it somewhere and just stream it. So, yeah. So that's just an old person's mindset, which cable companies are hanging on to. I guarantee you that. They're like, oh, she's all, they won't adjust anything. Just spoon feed him this crap and we're good to go. Oh, God. When are they going to learn that we're the ones that spend the money? Well, maybe that's what they've learned. We're the ones that spend the money and not the time to do the research to figure out how we can do it for less. But anyways, c'est la vie. And anybody who's younger than me, you will be here someday. Just mark my words that you're going to go through this too. You're going to suddenly become invisible, especially if you're a woman over a certain age. You're just going to become invisible. I mean, to talk about a story, I walked up to a counter at, I'll name them, Nordstrom's. Customer service, frickin', people who wrote the rules on it, basically. I have a sweater in my hand that I'm ready to purchase, and I'm standing there at the counter. And the woman walks in, looks behind me, and says, "Can I help you?" to the woman behind me. And I turned to look at her, and she's like, yeah. Okay, granted, I'm 4'11", but I'm not an 11-year-old. I don't have that appearance. I'm short, but I'm not, I'm not 8. So even the woman behind me is like, I don't know where that came from. So I turned around and I literally said, and I've never said this to anyone before or since, "I'm sorry, am I invisible?" And she then looks at me and she goes, I guess I just didn't see you. And I'm like, yeah, I'm invisible. And she's like, no, how can I help you? And everybody breathed a sigh of relief, and I got to pay for my item. But this will be your life at some point. So there's an advantage to it in many ways. Like take people who want to take, what am I trying to say? People who are standing on the corner and I'm going to say census takers, that's not, poll takers, where they want your opinion on something. Oh, it's a blessing because you are invisible to them. They are not interested in your opinion. They don't want to talk to you. And I don't know where that comes from. Probably because if they stop an old person, they think they're going to get stuck with them for the next 30 minutes listening to their war stories or whatever, which is the case in most cases. They do exist. I have stories about that too. But nonetheless, so invisibility is an interesting position to be in when you're this age. On the other hand, you're also at an age where you're so sick of the BS that goes on full time everywhere. That, they talk about cranky old people. Hell yes, we're cranky because we're sick of the BS. We've been living with it over 60 freaking years. We're tired of it. So don't freaking jump me through hoops that I don't need to jump through. Don't treat me like I'm an 8-year-old. Don't, for God's sakes, call me hun. Please. Hun, honey. You haven't earned the right to call me that. Okay, I guess that's my rant. My rant and a story. So now we'll move on to a reading. So what I do normally and what I'm going to do today just normally is Start with the compass, inner compass oracle, which is just my favorite little oracle deck. A card, as I was shuffling these, did pop out, so I'm going to use it as a clarifier of clarifiers, which is transformation. So I'll kind of put that at the heading, and then the first. Oh, hello. Let's start at the top of the deck here, not the bottom. So the first one is solitude. I don't know why I still do that. I was used to the camera being over here for so long, and now it's in the center because I switched movie apps or video recording apps that I just cannot get out of that habit. And I didn't record that many, so I don't know how it started in the first place. Second one, inner child. So probably something I need to focus on, a little shadow work, and inner vision. Very, very inner work-oriented reading today. So there's that. So those are our 3 headings for our 3 tarot cards that we're going to pick for today. First one, let's get this right side up, is the Devil, and that's under solitude. So that's why, isn't that a beautiful card? So that's why I need to freaking chill out and pay attention to all my crazy bad habits. The light today is just stunning. I don't know if you can see it on camera, but it's just that filtered, flickering, beautiful, almost signaling a spring-like day, which is like, and it's funny, I live in a place where it snows, and that's what it does, and I love it. I am a snow lover. But this has just been a really long winter. Usually winter doesn't really strike here until January, the hardcore temperatures and all of that stuff, and any heavy snows that we get. The heavy snow I've ever been in was in February. So January, February, and early March are usually the tough months, but it started here in November. And it just hasn't really let up, and it hasn't been, normally it stays nice and sunny, but this winter it's been a lot of gray, which is good for the mountains, good for the forests, good for everything, and then way too much rain down in Northern California. But so it's been good for everybody all around. But I just moved out of the Seattle, Portland area where I lived all my life under the shroud of gray, and I'm now kind of more in a high desert area where it's supposed to be sunny most of the time, and when it isn't, I get really depressed. Not depressed in a clinical sense, just, this is what I lived with for 30 years. I want the sunshine. So today is one of those days, and I just couldn't be happier. Okay, so the Devil is under solitude. So that's interesting. I mean, I don't know if it means that within the solitude, within my own solitude, I need to really reflect on the devils, the things in my life. It's a stairway with kind of a black, almost an eclipsed sun. It makes me want to dig the book out and read. This is what I love about this book, is it describes the artwork, and here I'll give you an example right now where it talks about that. So the Devil, I release toxic habits. Okay, I can do that. I do need to do that. So the keywords are darkness, balancing shadows, impulses, and habits. And so what it says is a set of stairs in an Edenic. Oh, and that would be the green things. Okay. So a set of stairs in an Edenic setting leads straight to a compelling snake that coils around a black sun. There is only one way to go, and escaping the snake's pull on this earthly path is unlikely. A brilliant sky lights up the scene behind the reptile, making the eclipse appear to be a bright omen when really it implies darkness. So even I think I mentioned the word eclipse. That's what it looks like. Isn't that interesting? I love that card. So, and then it says, this card symbolizes a temptation one eventually succumbs to, a certain path to losing your paradise. Are you currently acting in a way that satisfies you in the moment, but ends up hurting you later? So, I didn't read it all, but that's part of it. Okay, so next, inner child. Temperance. Interesting. A balance. So there's that card. I really like that. Almost looks like he's surfing, doesn't it? Surfing with the moon and the sun in both. Like he's like surfing on a sand dune with the sun in one hand, moon in the other. That's beautiful. Let's read what that's Temperance. I just love this deck. I love this deck so much. It's so interesting. So it says, I balance my sun and moon. And it says the keywords are interplay, center, and equilibrium. Temperance holds on to the moon in one hand and the sun in the other. With the weight of each temporarily throwing him off center, he balances his body. It's like he's surfing, isn't that weird? Balances his body to remain upright. Light and dark intermingle in the scene around him. The cool shadow of the moon contrasts with the warm sand beneath Temperance. At his back appears a split planet, for duality imbues everything. Isn't that beautiful? Oh. And so that's under the inner child. I'm going to have to take some time to reflect on that today because I'm not quite sure what that connection is. But I love the devil and the temperance together. I think it really speaks to, kind of, being smart about your choices, being wise about the choices that are positive in your life versus the ones that are negative, and the ones that you can really have a choice over, that you can guide. You have control of this stuff. I can't remember the names, but there's a blogger couple that I watch. I can't remember their names. Anyways, but their tagline is "Rule your own world," and that is so. And I think it takes all of us a really long time to understand, unless we've been through some severe kind of life-threatening situations as younger people. Oh, there goes another deer trying to catch up with the others. Boy, he's running late. That it takes us a very long time to understand that we are in fact in charge of our lives. We go through you go through the parental influences, and then you spend, at least I did, spend an awful lot of time as a young adult not fighting those, but in a way fighting them in your own head. I got to a point with my mom where I'd walk into the kitchen. It's a 30-year-old, 35-year-old, 40-year-old, walk into the kitchen and immediately become that combative 13-year-old, acting the same way because that's what I was used to, and it just serves no purpose. And even my mom was like, why do you get like this when you're not like this on the phone, you're only like this when you walk in the door? And I'm like, I don't know, the whole house atmosphere just brings me back to my youth, and it's not easy to let go of that, but yeah, so you just, it takes some of us a really long time to remove ourselves from that kind of pressure that we put upon ourselves to act and be a certain way. I think you spend a lot of your life trying to be you spend the early part of your life just being you, and then you end up trying to be something maybe the people around you want you to be, and you try to balance that with your parental influences, be there your parents or the people who raised you, and then you spend your young adulthood trying to figure all that out, and then when you get to that, better age, I call the better age, you get wiser about your choices. You begin, as your financial situation starts to settle down, and you actually have hopefully have choices about the directions you go and the thoughts that you have and the way you interact with people. We just get smarter about that, and you start to kind of let the toxic go. And I went through that a little bit in middle age, where I finally had to kind of literally break up with some friends because they just didn't make me feel good anymore. It was just this constant battle to be me around them, and I was like, you know what? No, we're done. Too much energy. I got enough to worry about in this part of my life than to worry about how to deal with you and how you make me feel like crap every time I'm around you. So yeah, we're done. And that's a really hard thing to do. Now, I'm an Aquarian, so I understand it's easier for us. Might not be as easy for others, but I think you really need to. For me, it was really just kind of a matter of mental survival. I was just, well, it wasn't that dire, but you know what I'm saying. I was just like, I can remember when the phone would ring, and I knew exactly who it was, and I would just go, oh God. And when your phone gives you that feeling, it's not the phone, it's the person on the other end of the line that's giving you that feeling, and you just don't want to, you're just not up for the task. Then is that really a friend? I guess you have to kind of think about it. A friend should be somebody who champions you and lifts you up. And when that isn't, or at least is your equal, in how you, not equal in terms of socioeconomic status, equal in intellectual. I'm not talking about that. I'm just talking about equal in terms of how you deal with each other. Will you help me? Will I help you? Six of coins all the way. Just I need support, you need support, and it, and however it goes, or you need joy, I need joy, and you're willing to share that back and forth in good times and in bad, then that's good. But when it's all one way, in any of those situations, but when it's all one way, there's just a point at which it's not good, and you need to let it go. So that's at least my wise old woman feeling, but I could be dead wrong about it. Correct me if I'm wrong. Anyways, the third one is inner vision. So what are we gonna? I love her. I love her suit and the crow on top of her. What is that? Like a branch coming out her head, but I'm not sure that's what it is. Just a branch, maybe, that she's holding. Anyways, inner vision. The next card is Seven of Pentacles. So, yeah. So kind of a reassess, Is the direction you're going worth the energy it's taking you, worth the energy that it takes to go in that direction? What is it that Chris says? Is the juice worth the squeeze? Yeah. So this is very self-reflective kind of thing. And when I bring the cards together, I think it really is speaking to, the fact that the devil, not the devil literally, but, that habits and things that you're used to all your life are not necessarily the best for you, as we all know. And that my life requires, a reassess of that, and the ability to balance. I mean, it doesn't mean you have to be completely virtuous, but it means that you need to be wiser about your just personal life choices and make sure they're in balance. Make sure you're not completely off. I mean, I don't think of this guy as being completely off balance. I look at him as, it's like he's on a skateboard or a surfboard or a snowboard. It doesn't mean you're going to fall down, but it means that you need to really make those self-adjustments within you to continue to move forward. And I think the Seven of Pentacles is just saying, make the wiser choices. I always keep saying that. I don't want to attach negative things to cards, even when they're negative. I think it's, it's kind of like, I remember hearing this from a mentor of mine ages ago. He said, never, when you're trying to remind somebody to do something, this is in a work situation, never say, don't forget. Because we're just all pre-programmed to hear that don't, and then you're just like, you're willing to fight against it. Always say, remember. Remember to do this. Remember to do that. Then you're punching that word, remember. And I don't know why that stuck with me all these years, but I did it. I used it all the time. And I remember a person I was working with years later said, it's, I hear you say that, and it always surprised me because all the other managers always say, don't forget this, don't do that, don't forget this, don't forget that. And you're always saying, remember to do this, remember. And it comes off so much more positive. And the results are generally better. So just a little tidbit of life advice there. But I think that's so. Seven of Pentacles. Remember that your choices have consequences, and that they may be good consequences and they may be bad consequences. And you need to determine, as I was saying before, like when you're dealing with a friend, you need to determine, is the juice worth the squeeze? Is the effort and energy I'm putting into this? Not that it's necessarily a quid pro quo, but in a way it is. You want to put in an amount of energy that's going to be good for the person you're doing that with, and you want them in return to do the same for you. And whenever the case may come up that you need that, and vice versa. It's everything's a balance. Everything is this, everything. And so when you're doing this, I think it really is about making the choices that will benefit you and those that surround you. You and your, as I heard recall, you and your herd. Make the choices that are good for you and your herd. And if there's people, members of that herd, that are not being worth that squeeze over a period of time, then it's time to make those hard choices about whether you want to remain expending energy on them with very little return. So that's my reading thing for today. And I have to do the energy on the bottom because it's just such a cool card. Knight of Wands. Isn't that great? Oh, I just love this deck. I can't recommend it more highly. It's just beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Have a wonderful day, everybody. As always, pay attention to those little miracles. They fall around you every day. Talk to you later. Bye.